And one of the tools in there that has been very helpful to the United States, which I challenge China to figure out how to deal with, is the fact that most of our energy laws, our environmental laws, have included the opportunity for citizens to sue the government to make sure that the government does its job under the law to provide the timely and effective protections for human health. And those have changed over time as science and technology have changed in response. And certainly Americans have also looked at energy policy as a tool of national security. I can't think about our efforts in the Middle East without thinking about the oil in the Middle East every single day. Every time I drive my car, I figure I'm sending money to Saudi Arabia, and I don't like it. And then finally, even as recently as our Economic Recovery Act program, we too are trying to use clean infrastructure investment for a way to stimulate economic activity. One of the ways in which we are very different today, however, is our interest in financing long-term research, development, and deployment of energy. So I've just circled two numbers here. Those are government funding and private funding of energy technology. $13 billion in 1 year, I have to get the numbers right, in China compared to half that amount, even though we're a larger economy by a much larger extent. And I'm going to read you the quote at the bottom from Kelly Sims Gallagher, who used to be at the Kennedy School. She's now at Tufts. And this month, she testified at the Senate and was describing the differences between U.S. research and development funding compared to other countries. Recently, China, along with Japan, are the only two countries that have historically steadily increased their investments in real terms. By contrast, in the United States, there has been a 1 in 3 chance that any given program will receive a funding change, up or down, greater than 25% each year for the last 3 decades. Did I get the decades right? 4 decades, excuse me. 3, sorry. So that kind of stability on the Chinese side compared to instability on the U.S. side is a condition for havoc in our innovation compared to other areas. This is a picture of the Department of Energy's funding profile for that same period of time, the last 30 years. And so you see, with the exception of the Economic Recovery Act over there on the right, in which there was a huge amount of money invested in energy efficiency, renewable energy, fossil carbon capture and sequestration, we've just seen a very tremendous disinvestment relative to our needs at this point in time. One of the things that China does in such different ways than the United States, they don't make these hamburgers, I know. China focuses on all parts of the research and development sandwich. So when you, oh wow, it's very weird animation, sorry. So if I think one part of it is the long-term research, and the other part is really the market conditioning through public policies to pull renewables or to push energy efficiency into the economy, China also focuses on the middle, and the United States does not. So we've traditionally focused on states, renewable portfolio standard, energy efficiency programs in the United States. But again, also long-term materials development in those areas. But manufacturing enhancements or efficiencies or other ways to create green bank financing of things to get them over the valley of death. China has been much more aggressive in doing that, and it understands all of the parts of that sandwich. So we're in this together. This is really meant to inspire us all for the rest of the day to think about this. There are just 4 things that I want to put down as examples of ways in which we are operating on a path in which our futures are entirely connected. I'm going to describe for just a minute the program that I've been involved with for over 10 years, the China Sustainable Energy Program. This is an effort that was funded many, many years ago by Hewlett and Packard Foundations. Those two family foundations have been the beneficiaries of tremendous work between the Packard-Hewlett founders, inventors of the companies, as well as starting work in China of Hewlett-Packard as the computer company, but also the money that went to the family foundation coming out of it. They were very interested in seeing how they could help China bridge this problem of dealing with its impending energy and environmental crises. And as a result of that, they set up a foundation that's supported through the Energy Foundation, with which I'm affiliated. And starting 12 years ago, a significant amount of money, which goes a long way in China, has gone to support the development of non-governmental organizations, research institutes, and a variety of others to do assessments, research, policy design, best practices, lessons to help the Chinese central government and provincial governments put in place policies for fuel economy, for energy efficiencies, for sustainable building design in the new towns, the new cities, cities that China is moving forward with. And as a result of that, this is a non-governmental way in which our two nations have cooperated, and China has embraced many of these at times when the United States government, central government, has not. Another example is, this is a place where China has leapfrogged, of course, is solar production capacity. One of the scars on my back is that I'm on the board of a solar company located in Massachusetts called Evergreen Solar. I don't know who's heard about Evergreen Solar. Our first factory to build a photovoltaic panel is here in Massachusetts. Evergreen Solar had a lot of competition from different states to put its first factory in one state in the United States or another. Evergreen Solar has a pretty amazing way to create polysilicon for photovoltaics. And this factory would use that technology and then create the panels with workers here in the United States. Well, Evergreen Solar still has that first step in the process, which is the creation of the wafer itself. But Evergreen Solar cannot compete with production in China. And the second factory is in China. So our technology has moved to China. Chinese workers are doing the second and third parts to create wafers into cells and into panels. Those can be shipped back to the United States more cheaply than if they were built in the factory in the United States. And that's happened because China has put down zero interest capital for manufacturing facilities. They've cleared the decks in terms of permitting. The factory was built in about 9 months in China. It was a tragic day when about a month ago we had to shut the American factory. And I just want to put a really sad piece of story at the end of that. The United States put a tariff in place because of concerns in China about World Trade Organization disparities in our policies, because of free capital being put in place, because of manufacturing incentives. So as a result of that, if a product such as a panel was coming back from China into the United States, it would have a tariff in order to compete with a U.S. built panel. So we were beginning to use our factory in Massachusetts to create the wafer, move it to China, where it became a Chinese panel, and couldn't come back into the United States as a product. Tragic story. But as a result of that, there's a very different manufacturing environment in China, and China's going to eat our lunch. Okay, that's just more pictures about it. I know you're going to hear from David Moeller more about the impressive work going on in China on the carbon capture and sequestration from coal-fired facilities. This leads the world in terms of dealing with one of our biggest challenges, not only in China, but in the United States, of figuring out how we will continue to operate on a fossil economy or central station industrial and power generation facilities at a time where there are severe expectations we will have to dramatically reduce that. We can't get there from an economic point of view without coal and natural gas. And in my opinion, we can't get there with some way to deal with the carbon. So I'm looking forward to hearing David's remarks on this. And this is just a little, a family. This is my brother's article on this piece, so you'll have to go off and take a look at that. The last example I think I want to use is shale gas. The shale gas revolution in the United States has taken place in the last 5 years. And the revolution is really tapping a resource that people have long known existed in parts of the United States. It's the red areas on these maps. And using different technologies in different applications to be able to get gas out of the ground from rock formations economically. And as a result of that, the United States has moved all projections of the availability of natural gas, and the price of natural gas has been tremendously much more affordable as a result. The U.S. is now the largest gas producer in the world. We didn't expect to be in that place. We were losing our ability to tap conventional gas. We have a huge resource base, but so does China. China is a much smaller producer and user of natural gas. But their reserves are extraordinary, and gas has half the greenhouse gas emissions from coal. It can be liquefied and used in a variety of forms, methanol and a variety of other things for liquid uses as well. The rest of the world obviously has these, and this provides an opportunity for strategic alliances and changing relationships around the globe as a result of different fossil relationships. And these are just a reminder, and as I say, the animation is a little weird, so I apologize. So if we don't do the kinds of dramatic changes that we're talking about, we're toast, right? We're toast economically because we have so much pressure on the forms of the energy, and we see it rising, that industrial countries, are essentially flat compared to China, India, the rest of the developing world. And from a greenhouse gas emissions point of view, that is, of course, stunning when you think about those kinds of changes, unless business as usual changes. Every day that we go up on that red line of greenhouse gases, we go farther up in terms of concentrations in the atmosphere, and the longer we wait to start turning it around, the harder it's going to be, and the worse we leave our generations ahead in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. We've got to turn it around, and I think that there are tremendous things to learn from China as a result of that. And China's success is critical to the global success in addressing those issues. And share. Thank you.